Hi, welcome to Crappy Media Reviews. I'm the Crappy Media Reviewer, and today I'm going to talk about Ride to Hell Retribution, one of the worst games of all time. So, let's start by talking about the plot. The story itself is extremely poor and basic. It basically boils down to kill the next gang member, and every single time the gang member flees to 2 or 3 new hideouts to shamelessly pad out the game. God, why does everything that I review have to have filler? Also, poor first impression. The game opens with Jake using a turret, driving his motorcycle, and getting into a QTE fistfight. The whole sequence jumps back and forth, has no setup, and shows a cutscene that was pulled later in the game. Numerous bugs and glitches also occur. They become worse in the vehicle sections where parts of the scenery disappear, your bike appears outside barriers, suddenly warps forward, and falls through the road into limbo. The main characters are unlikable and completely moronic. For example, Mikey spent hours wearing the very clearly labeled Retribution jacket, and Mac never told him to take it off despite being fully aware that the Devil's Hand gang controlled the area. Speaking of the characters, many of them are generic and unlikable, being nothing more than stereotypes such as the women in this game, Carlos the hippie, and the biker gang characters themselves. The graphics are outdated despite running on the Unreal Engine 3 with ugly depth of field effect and oversaturated colors with some horrendous texture popping that make the game look even worse. Lazy and puppet-like animations. No character has any real face animation. Jake's actions in the game make him a borderline criminal. Voice acting and dialogue is extremely poor. To quote Angry Joe, it's as if the lines were recorded in the bathroom of the studio by unpaid interns. The PC version itself was simply a console port of the 360 version, making the PC version one of the worst PC ports of all time. The sound design and audio are poor and unfinished, with mixing many cutscenes are dead silent other than the character's voice and inconsistent sound effects. The cutscenes are disjointed and awkward. For example, when Colt saw Mikey wearing the vest, the game jumps to Jake and Mikey being pursued by the Devil's Hand bikers. After the pursuit section, it jumps to them got cornered by the bikers without any transition. The game randomly freezes and crashes. Many of the enemies you kill have nothing to do with the Devil's Hand, such as cops and truckers. 37 missions in the game are criticized for being boring and repetitive, as well as the game doing such a poor job to tell you where the objectives are. The environments are linear. The game was originally supposed to be open world, but due to the terrible development, they had to do everything they had instead of making every driving section go from point A to point B. There are invisible walls that throw the wrong way turn back that prevents you from exploring from areas beyond the moving outdoors, possibly due to the game being hugely rushed. The driving physics are sloppy. Your bike steers like it's riding on ice, you can draft almost indefinitely, and on gamepads, the speed boost is mapped to the left thumbstick by pushing it forward. The enemy AI is extremely poor. They don't take cover, and melee enemies will opt to just bomb rush you in shooting sections as well as getting stuck on walls and shooting in random directions. Sometimes they ignore you completely. Enemies are also bullet sponges. The soundtrack is awful and repetitive. Melee combat is so basic and broken that you can easily exploit by spamming the block breaking kick. The camera is poorly positioned to where Jake is always to the left of the screen. Shooting is also broken due to stiff aiming and jerky camera. The only challenge in the driving sections is not to crash and you are allowed to turn back. Otherwise, the game forcefully restarts you at a checkpoint down road. It has some of the worst driving and shooting stages ever made. During these stages, Jake drives in slow motion and must shoot an enemy biker until he dies. Motorcycle combat is repetitive because every enemy does the same thing. Whenever you make a mistake 3 times in the bike sections, the biker leans off to the right and explodes for no reason. Lazy and copy-pasted character models. The women in the game are particularly egregious since they all use the same 4 free character models. Drown, loud, and stupid level design. In one instance, Jake must deactivate an electric fence that needs to climb over. To do this, he steals a truck after killing some innocent truckers, drives miles away to the power plant while killing cops, kills all the workers there, shoots the truck from the distance away, and blows up the entire plant. All that just to deactivate an electric fence. Has a DLC that isn't any better than the one little game. However, there was one redeeming quality to this. The facial animations, voice acting, poor AI and glitches can be unintentionally fun. So overall, I'd give Right to Hell Retribution a 4 out of 10. See you later in the next review where I'm going to talk about A Pal for Gary, one of the worst SpongeBob episodes of all time.